I'm sure if you played with Michael Jordan, you became a better basketball player. Same with Tom Brady. Like, go where the best are, see how they operate, see how they do things, and steal as much as you can from them. I'm a thief and a hoarder. Like, I will steal any idea. Someone says something smart in a meeting, I'm writing it down, and then I'll hoard it, and then I'll back to the well, and then I'll pull it out later as if it was mine. And that's what you do when you go see a movie or read a book. You see something, you take it, you pop it down there, and you pull it back out when you need it.
Have you seen the Jason Kelce ads with the B-Dubs Buffalo hanging out at the bar? Or maybe you've seen something a little more pinkies out, such as the holiday campaign for Tiffany Co. featuring Anya Taylor Joy. Do you like Super Bowl commercials? Because if any of these are of any interest to you, then today is your day, because we're talking to industry pro Mike Byrne, founding partner and global creative officer of Anomaly. Anomaly has in their portfolio 31 Super Bowl commercials, with I'm pretty sure more on the way. Budweiser, the Lance Armstrong Live Strong campaign, Buffalo Wild Wings, Topgolf, so much Nike, Converse, SONY, 6 offices around the world, 800 plus employees, all of these with Mike at the helm. So look up Anomaly, look up Mike. I promise this is a good one. And that's why I'm going to shush. And we're going to get right to letting you hear straight from Mike Byrne of Anomaly. So less me, more Mike, Filmmakers in Advertising, episode 28, commence.
My name is Mike Byrne, and I am the founding partner and chief creative officer of Anomaly Global.
Yes, you are. So I'm gonna warm us up with a little icebreaker. This one's easy, but it might also hurt. Are you an Eagles fan?
I am.
Yeah.
Die hard.
How's that going?
Yeah. Not so good. My new approach to being a avid fan is to lower my expectations.
I know that pain. That was a smidge bitter of me because I'm a Bills fan, and I think the best game I saw last year was actually our game, as I recall. Now, I'm biased, of course, but that was the best game, which we lost.
Yeah, which is surprising that you lost. I don't know how we won whatever 10 games.
Are you a Sirianni fan, or am I getting too specific?
You know, I haven't come to. I don't really know yet. I mean, there's things that I like about him. You know, that's a whole podcast.
Yeah, I bet it could be. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I guess I'll keep it relevant. It's a good warm up though. It's been a long road. I wasn't online yet in the 90s to share in that pain with those 4 back-to-back losses.
I can sympathize with the fans. You know?
I would love it for the city though.
It's hard to argue against Mahomes, but I think you have probably the second best quarterback in the league.
Love some Josh.
Yeah, he's good.
I would just be holding it in the whole time if I didn't dive right into football stuff, but actually I have to backtrack. Sorry. So this won't be in a smart, intelligent order. Mm-hmm. I will be taking a bit of a bias lean towards the filmmakers, of course, hence the name, because until you're working at the level that you're working at, there's a ton of mystery. It's not like the film industry where there's screenwriting books all over the shelves, podcasts and YouTube videos. It's until you're like at Smuggler or one of the bigger production houses, you kind of just don't know what's going on. You almost have to just pop and be good enough to be there. And then you start learning how it all works. So that's something that I found, and we found talking about this, because sometimes even something that I think will be common knowledge, somebody who has maybe more experience, money, what have you, than me, they'll be like, oh, thanks for asking that. I didn't know that about that agency. So that's kind of the angle I'm going to be picking your brain from. So whenever you see an opportunity to maybe be a little more informative towards the production side or the director's side, filmmaker side, we'd love to just dive in. The floor is yours. But back to football. You guys just recently did the Buffalo Wild Wings commercial with Jason Kelce, right?
Yeah, that was done out of our LA office.
Okay.
I wasn't part of it. I didn't get to go to the shoot, which is probably a good thing because I would have been a bit of a fan. But
I was going to say, yeah, I was wondering if you were kind of giddy about. I didn't know if you got to meet him.
No, I didn't get to. I will get to meet him eventually. I have a rule with all my years on Nike and athletes is I'm a professional. I'm there to do a job, and I'm not there to get an autograph or a photograph.
Yeah.
You got your 8-hour day. They're exhausted. They have their handlers. You just kind of like try to make it as smooth a production as possible. They don't need me yapping in their ear.
Yeah.
It'd be hard with an Eagle, though, I have to say. We're like Allen Iverson or somebody like that. I would probably say something.
He seems like a fun guy. I mean, to go back to the Buffalo thing, I mean, what a champ when he was at their game last year, helicoptering his shirt, out in the stands with fans. He seems really great, but I'm sure you're going to run into him because he looks like he's doing everything.
Yeah, he's got a window right now that he's taking advantage of, which will close, but good on him. Collect the cash while you can.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stay in the football and the sports arena because, like I said, there's no way I'd be able to keep it in because as a football fan myself, of course, and correct me on any of the numbers if I get them wrong, but if I understand correctly, this past year was Anomaly's 31st Super Bowl commercial in the last 12 years. Is that correct?
I think that's the number. Yeah.
That means you're averaging over 2 Super Bowl commercials per year. Is that right for the last 12 years?
Yeah, because we've done 2 and 3. We had 1 year, and I want to say it was 2020, where we didn't do any Super Bowl.
Right.
That's a whole other thing too, is because it's a different beast, and there's a different pressure, which I don't always think is warranted. But you're spending a ton of money, and we know that. Obviously, it's not our money, but you're responsible. You understand what's at stake. And we've also gone from like a day where like when you saw the Super Bowl ad, it was the first time you're seeing it. Now you're releasing it a week and a half before, and there's all the build up to it. And, so there's just a lot of applied pressure, which is fine. I always question, what are you really getting from it? I mean, it's a great stage for advertising.
Who's you in this scenario where you say, what are you really getting from it?
Brands. What are they really getting from it?
Okay.
Spending all that money. And I'm sure there's data that says it's worth every penny. That's above my pay grade. But it's like Super Bowl comes and goes. Especially if you have a team in it that loses, you don't care for anything that you saw during the game. And then like, what's the residue afterwards of the work that you put on there? Like, how sustaining is it? And you're sandwiched between 2 other commercials that are hopefully really good. I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it. And it's exciting to see all your effort and hard work, show up on TV in front of 117 million people.
Yeah.
You get more eyeballs on a Super Bowl commercial than most filmmakers get on their films. So you think about that. That's like a real opportunity and really fun. It's all the things that you forget when you just get your head down and you're just trying to deliver something spectacular. You forget about the ramifications of it, the people that are seeing it. So all that stuff's good. Not to say, is it not worth it? I'm sure it is. And I enjoy it. It's just like all the things around it and the pressure and the expectations sometimes I think can be a little bit out of control.
I would assume the majority of our listeners are listening because they want to get to working with you on something like that.
Right.
It's a good thing to touch on, at least if people can manage their expectations to be prepared for that in advance. Because, I mean, the irony of the Super Bowl is it's not just the Super Bowl for, not telling you anything you don't know, it's not just the Super Bowl for the players, it's the Super Bowl for the halftime performers and especially the advertisers. Yep. So we are talking about the Super Bowl of advertising too. Mm-hmm. So anything that you're willing to share on that front, it's helpful. It's beneficial because at least if it's some sort of professionalism or lessons learned, then that's the stuff that up and comers can start practicing now.
Yeah, I think the tenets really are the same for any sort of film that you're making. Is you want a really strong narrative. You want a great beginning, a great middle, and a great end. Oftentimes what you see in the Super Bowl is you see strong ideas, but then you can see, well, you got to have this person in there. The idea gets compromised a little bit, but the same rule still applies. Like I always tell people that I'm working with is, that's sort of the gun in the drawer moment, which is in screenwriting, just to literally take that analogy, is like first 5 seconds of the movie, someone opens a drawer and there's a gun in it and you cut out of the scene. Like, that gun's going to come back. So it's a hook. So I always go like, what in the first 5 seconds, what's hooking me? Why take me to your leader. Why am I invested now in this film? I won't even say commercial because it's still a film. So that's the first part. And then you got to carry it through the middle. And then one of the things you see a lot, you see this in feature films as well, is just bad endings. Like you got to end strong. I mean, that sometimes is the hardest thing. I think people, they start writing, they start creating, they have their narrative. The ending's always soft. It's always a little weak. So the things that I try to focus on are those, act 1, act 2, act 3, and making sure that's complete and that narrative arc is established. And then you just try to find those beats. What are those moments that people are going to remember after? When I come out of a really good movie, if it's a really good movie, I have that residue, that magic powder with me for the next 30 minutes. Like I'll come out of a good movie and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to change my life. Or I remember when I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Brad Pitt character I thought was one of the coolest characters I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I want more of that. I want more of that. So it's like, your commercial runs and then there's one after it. How do I get you to keep thinking about what you just saw as you're watching the next commercial? So I almost sort of take you out of that commercial. I push that to the side. I want you talking about what you just saw. I want you feeling it. I want you maybe going right to YouTube to watch it again.
Yeah.
That's the fun of the Super Bowl. I'm a competitive person by nature, and that's you get competitive with it. It's a chance like, all right, who's going to show up on the big show? You're getting called up. What do you got? All of that stuff is what's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's just when you get into those moments where you start to compromise is where it gets difficult. And that's always the challenge in our business, right? Like you have an idea in your head and you feel it and you see it and you understand it, you can smell it, and then it gets chipped away a bit. And you have to, memory of a goldfish, you have to be able to adjust, change things to accommodate feedback, but try to keep all the pieces together as best you can. And, that's always a battle.
Yeah.
I do think if you have that strong beginning, middle, end, obviously supported by a great idea, insight that's really interesting, that people identify with and relate to, and tell that story. And that's all craft, and that's nuance, and that's never putting your pen down, and that's interrogating it even up until you shoot it. And then you have the wonderful edit, which is magic happens in an edit. I love edits.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. I was telling someone the other day, I did a Nike campaign with Earl Morris, and the guys won Oscars. And I don't know if it was the job or not, but like I was sort of expecting that, like, this blow my head off moment. And I was kind of like underwhelmed. But I realized that Earl Morris is actually a really good editor.
Yeah.
That's someone who like shoots for the edit. He knows when he gets in that edit room what the pieces that he needs. And maybe the way he goes about it is different than what I expected. But the editing part is, I've gotten into edits where we changed the story, or we took all the sound out and used one piece of sound design that gave it, because that's where the perfect sandwich is strong narrative, great piece of music, because, obviously we all know what music can do.
Mm-hmm.
When all those components come together, I always call it the perfect sandwich. It's like you get this perfect, complete, digestible film that does everything it needs to do, that it's trying to do. And I think in the edit, you discover a lot of those things. You may have a song you already picked out, but you've only been playing it as you're presenting a script, or you did your rip or whatever. But until you get in there and see the film that you actually have, and then just like how one scene goes to the next, like the best editors know exactly those transition points. And then there's some editors that you struggle with more. And then there's some that like the first rough cut, you're like, I don't really have any comments.
In a bad way?
No, in a good way. I'm a big fan of hire people who are really good at what they do and let them do it. That to me is like the recipe for success.
I appreciate you saying that, because sometimes things can get chipped away at. I've formulated different words for that. I would say, we need more iconic memories, that stick, long after they're watching it, or iconic imagery or iconic sound, things that just really latch into people, like fish hooks and stuff. You can get worn down by not just maybe clients, but even the artists around you. Now, I don't know if you felt that pressure in a long time, given your position, but when you're at the tier that I'm currently at, you can even feel it from maybe a DP that's got 20 more years of experience than you do or something.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's something you've had with you for a while, those perspectives. So it's nice to hear you kind of like plant your flag. I was revisiting your stuff last night, and I teared up at a commercial I'd already seen. And it was your Budweiser spot with the puppy.
Yeah, buddies.
Yeah, and I'll link everything in the show notes just for listeners. And maybe you could describe it far better than I can, so I don't want to butcher it. But I mean, the guy adopts a puppy.
I'll often say, like, don't play fair. And what I mean by that is, if you throw a puppy on TV, you're garnering attention, I guess. But then, there's a whole story there. There's a whole narrative arc. There's a whole beginning, middle, end.
Yeah.
So it's just getting back to that, building the structure of the story, pulling me in from the beginning, all those pieces I talked about.
Yeah.
But I tend to work with a lot of directors that I have a relationship with, because there's such a shorthand, and it's always difficult because you've been living with the idea for so long.
Yeah.
and you've presented the idea multiple times, and then you give it away. Like you give this thing to someone else, and they bring their vision to it. And that's wonderful. And that should happen. It's the times when it happens where their vision and your vision is off. And sometimes you don't even realize that until you're actually shooting. That's a horrible situation to be in. Even if it's a new director, try to get to know them a little bit and go, how collaborative are you? Or are you the director that's like, you're going to just deal with my producer and all the feedback's going to come through my producer and me? I'm like, I can't do that. I don't, that's not how I like to work. I like to be collaborative. I like to be sometimes up by the camera. I like to be part of the process. Like, I don't want to be over in the video village sitting on a chair drooling like an idiot.
Yeah.
I want to be engaged and part of it. That's an important thing too. I think to getting to great work is those relationships and being on the same page. And then obviously you want them to bring their vision to it. Like, I'm not talking about how you block a scene. I'm not thinking those things through and what camera to use. I just know, like, I think this should be a long lens shot because I think it's going to look really cool. And this should be like, that should be soft focus. Like, I'll have those sort of opinions, but I'm also open to discourse and like, nah, that's not going to work because of this. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. But thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to me for a minute.
I'd love to ask, what does healthy, respectable discourse look like?
I think it's like that first call, like you send the script. I think it starts on the first call.
Okay.
And I always try to put myself in a director's position too, because if they really like the idea and they're really hungry for it, you can usually feel that. If it's, we got a Super Bowl spot from Anomaly, we're liking it, you got nothing on your schedule.
Yeah.
So that first conversation is huge. And I like that to be as informal as possible. Hey, this is how we got here. This is what we're thinking. We're still kind of struggling with this moment. We'd love for you to think about that. Like, just like honesty, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And then hearing what they have to say back. And a lot of times they'll say things even on that first call, that their first instinct, you're like, oh yeah, they get this. And I didn't even think of that. And then you can't get what they said out of your head, and they kind of already won the job.
Oh, that's neat to hear.
Then you get into this treatment conversation where you're looking at the treatments, and I tend to like go on what they say more than I go on the treatment, because then, and I don't know how this works all the time, but sometimes I feel like the treatment wasn't even written by the director. It might have been written by someone else. And I don't get as hung up on like swipe and things like that. Sometimes if I see an image that they used, and that I can't get out, that's like scorched on my retina, I will often go back to that. Like, that image that you used in the treatment, like that's that feeling, that made me, I can't get out of my head. So I'll grab onto things like that too. It's a combination of those conversations you have, the treatment, and then just a general feel. And then I'll reach out to people in the industry and who've worked with that director before. If it's someone I've never worked with, and go, hey, give me the God's honest truth on how was the production, and did you feel you could collaborate with them in the moment? Are they the kind of director that like is feeling the same thing, or is willing to like maybe approach it a little differently? You're on the clock, and there's a lot of money at stake, and could be celebrity performers who only give you 4 hours and time is tight. And to be able to call an audible, as a nice little football term, can you call an audible, and are they cool with it? Are they flexible? Are they willing to do that kind of? So all those things are vital, I think, to get into something great.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing like more, getting under the hood on all these processes. I guess I'll stick to your best bud spot, the Budweiser puppy spot, because I kind of felt like a dork. I don't mean this to sound insulting at all, but I was like, I've seen this before. Why are my eyes watering? Because I've already seen this. And not only that, I know what this spot's going to be. There's a puppy. There's the Budweiser, famous Clydesdales. I know this is going to be a tearjerker. And then my eyes are still watering at the end. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate what's the thing where you say, hey, I know it's simple, but it's still it's still going to be a gut punch, and it's still going to work. It's not like a Shyamalan twist at the end that brings you to tears. I was curious to know, because you have a range of very creative stuff that I'm gonna get to, but that something like that's just so solid. And I was curious to know what it was like for someone like you, or the best that I can figure out from you from looking at your work, to start with something that just maybe wasn't complex, but very solid, and to carry that all the way through and say, hey, everybody, this is good. This is solid. This will work. And it does work, I think, objectively.
We did a trilogy of puppy spots. That was the second one.
Okay.
And I think when we went into that, and we would laugh a lot of times about like, oh yeah, we laughed the fact that we're dealing with a puppy, and it wasn't lost on us that we're treading on some fragile territory here of it could get cheesy really fast. And I'm sure some people do think it's cheesy, but we used the Clydesdales in that to play a bigger role. Like, and that's the scene when they stop the guy from taking the puppy away from the adoption place.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was all those beats. Like, puppy gets lost, a puppy comes home, reunites with horse, and then what are all those beats in between? And like, there's a lot. I don't know how many edits are in that 60, but I mean, it is tight. And we went into that with like shoot the edit, and I worked on that with Jake Scott, who I've worked with a lot and love him and have a great relationship with him.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure we know. And what is Jake Scott?
He's a director at RSA. Again, that's like super shorthand with him. I could text him at midnight and go, "Hey, I have this thought," like one of those relationships, which is great. And then he hand drew the storyboards because he can draw. He's an amazing artist. It was actually a great shoot. We had like 8 puppies.
I was wondering how many puppies you had for that.
Yeah. And that was fun as hell because we show up in this barn and there's 8 golden retriever puppies.
I'm sure that wasn't distracting at all.
I went into the thing and I lied down on my back, and it was like I was in heaven.
That's awesome.
But then you got the horses, and then we needed a Clydesdale to basically sprint. And they, Clydesdales are workhorses. They don't really run hard. And the Budweiser Clydesdale people, the trainers are amazing. And we had sent them the script weeks in advance, and they trained this one Clydesdale to sprint, because there's that scene where it just runs, there's a great tracking shot where it's running over a white fence and it's in the field. Shot that like 3 times. And we also had to jump over a fence, which they also had to train it to do. And then the puppies were actually trained.
Oh my gosh!
By this amazing group of people.
I didn't know you could train puppies.
I didn't either. And then I was like, I want one. And they're like, oh, they're all accounted for. So you basically got a trained puppy coming out of that if you were lucky.
Yeah.
There was all that stuff. And then, but really, we had the story scene by scene pretty much locked. So then the only thing, like I said, that was up for, like, we didn't know if it was going to work. It was just the animals and how they behave. Like that shot at the end where the puppy leans up to the horse. I mean, that was real. That just happened. That was amazing. I mean, obviously there was a trainer in the stable with the horse getting the puppy and the horse to go down and all that stuff.
Okay.
That was a smooth process. Edit was smooth. That was one of the ones where you're like, this feels, I'm like, am I not working hard enough? Why is this going so well? It was great.
I'm going to start being, I'll try to be more vague just to give you more space to explain things and not limit you so much. With something like that, with Budweiser, do they come to you and go, hey, this year, emotional, that's what we're doing. Can you deliver? Or do they say, hey, this year we have a spot, tell us what you got. And then you maybe decide if it's emotional.
Well, that whole trilogy started with, they like using the Clydesdales. It's a great asset for them. I wouldn't call myself a horse guy, but I became one when I got around those animals.
I believe it.
And how amazing they are. And now I'm like, horses, I think, are just these amazing creatures. Like, it's like when you look into a horse's eye, there's something way deeper going on there.
Yeah.
Like you feel like a soul and they can't speak to you. I mean, I think the same as if you're a dog person, like dogs are special.
Yeah.
So the brief was like, hey, we want to use the Clydesdales. I don't remember exactly if it was the tenor, like, do we have to be emotional or not? But Budweiser had done sort of comedy stuff with the horses.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, once you meet those Clydesdales, you're like, I'm not going to do comedy with these amazing creatures. I'm going to do something. I want to personify them, if you will. I want to personify the puppy and the horse, because that's the great thing about animals. We can all kind of put ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like animation. Like you can kind of put yourself there a little bit without a human.
Yeah.
Because the minute you see a human, there's subconscious judgment on how they look, how they dress, whatever. But with an animal, it's like there isn't that, and I think it's more inviting. So we knew we wanted to go emotional, and we knew we wanted to do something that made you feel for them and for the brand.
Yeah.
That was really from what I can remember, was essentially the brief. I mean, I'm sure there was like way more stuff in there that I'm forgetting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a decade ago, I'd love to go back, and I'm pretty sure it's further back than that, because you have a range of cool spots. If anybody's comfortable doing Super Bowl spots at this point, you'd have to say that you're in that category, because this is your regular job annually at this point, other than 2020 recently. I was curious to know what, for someone like you, to kind of go back to your first one. There's so much I can ask about how you're operating now, kind of trying to just go back to that late nights and noodles and the team is smaller. I'm assuming I mean, like I said, unless you were just the Terminator from the beginning and super cool about everything, like I would assume there had to be some sort of excitement when you had the opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl spot? Because I assume you didn't just have it right away.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was to answer your original question. Like, what was the first thing like? In terms of my approach, nothing different. But in terms of like giving Anomaly a little bit more exposure in the communications world, that was huge, and I was excited and proud about that for Anomaly and all the people who work here and worked there at the time. Mm-hmm. That was a nice moment. Not to say that it didn't by any means put us on the map. I was saying to someone the other day, I think I worked 20-hour days, no day, the classic story, right? Where
now, was this leading up to the pitch or leading up to production? I assume both, but I was just curious to know about
that. That was just the beginning of Anomaly, but yeah, I mean, then when the whole Bud thing went down, yeah, that was a pitch. And then obviously then you get right into that. And then you're like, oh, these guys do Super Bowl commercials. And this is like a old school American brand that, and that was also cool to work on something very Americana. I thought it was great. And then with that, there's a responsibility. The brands that you work on, you are responsible for as much as you can be. So yeah. I took that to heart, and I wanted to do great by them and then great by Anomaly as well, and then continue it. And then, we've done, I don't know how many Bud Super Bowl spots we did. I think about 8 probably in total. And there's some other, which I don't know if they were sent to you, but there were some other ones that I'm a big fan of too, that weren't part of that Puppy trilogy. Like we did one on Prohibition.
I saw that one.
And then how the company started with Augustus Busch and Ebenezer Anheuser. That one's great. We shot that all in New Orleans and the surrounding area with a director named Chris Sargent, who did a great job. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful piece of film.
Born the Hard Way.
Born the Hard Way. Yes, thank you. It was a nice little story at the time, too, just talking about early America, how things came together.
Yep.
You got 2 German guys who meet up with each other, and they bring that German brewing philosophy, which is, German beers are excellent.
And this thing's epic, too. You've got the river boat. There's a huge fire. I mean, this is a huge production.
Yeah. We shot in New Orleans, and we found some great locations outside of New Orleans. I think that was at the time when I think Louisiana had like a tax break.
Louisiana, it was around 2012 through maybe 20. They were on fire, man. They were soaking it up, like True Detective, Oblivion with Tom Cruise. They were cooking for a while. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it was a good place to shoot. And it's obviously a great place to be. That's a wonderful city and lots to do, lots of great food, music.
I love this stuff. I love learning, whatever I can. This is totally a selfish endeavor that kind of called me back in.
No, totally. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So you spent some serious time in Portland. Your awesome resume is so cool, of course. This was Wieden and Kennedy, right? And you weren't with Nike, you're with Wieden and Kennedy in Portland. And were you the guy through Wieden and Kennedy on the Nike account, or one of the primary people on the account? Because either way, you were heavily involved from what I saw on Nike stuff.
So I started at Wieden, New York when it just opened.
Did you? When it just opened? Okay.
Yeah, it just opened. Stacy Wall, who is now a director, he was like the chief creative guy. I think I was employee number 5 or 6. And then I was there for 2 years. And then I went to Portland. And to be honest with you, I must have slept in geography class because I knew Portland was somewhere in Oregon. I had no idea where. And I was kind of pumped because I grew up outside of Philadelphia, East Coast kid. And I'm like, never really spent time on the West Coast, and I knew nothing about Pacific Northwest and how beautiful it is.
You didn't know those were those Lord of the Rings trees out there.
Didn't know any of that stuff. And then Portland was amazing. And then, having recently gone back, it's a completely different city. It's like totally built up, tons. Yeah. It's like where Wieden is, it's in this area called the Pearl District in Northeast. It was like the classic warehouse, kind of dilapidated buildings, and then Wieden comes in, and then I'm sure that was part of it, and then it just kind of blew up from there. And it's a little bit of a different city now. I mean, I still love it, and I still love that part of the country, even going up all the way up to Vancouver, British Columbia area. Like that whole Pacific Northwest is like, if you're into the outdoors, and there's nothing better, in my opinion.
It's cool. Yeah, how much bigger it is. I lived in LA a couple times, and even just riding up the one, going up the coast and just seeing it.
Northern California too.
It's you have expanded now to, you're in New York, you're in LA, you're in Berlin.
Correct.
And
Toronto
and Shanghai.
And London.
And I know it's such an open-ended question. We're going to come back to Portland and Nike, be like, what's that like? I mean, I say constant. I'm sure you were there every step of the way, but I mean, this is like aggressive expansion. You guys are seriously putting down offices, and it's just very cool to see. I'd just if you could comment at all on this growth, and maybe why you decide to have offices there, and what keeps you in New York too, when you have these offices. And that's what made me think of it too, because we're saying how beautiful these other places are. I'm just curious to hear from you, because you have to remember, up and comers are listening for clues,
right?
Because if you say New York's where you need to be to X, Y, or Z, they're going to go, well, I love the West Coast too, but I need to be in New York because Mike said so. So no pressure, but that's kind of why I'm picking at so many directions here.
This city to me it's like a drug. And to what you were saying earlier, like sometimes it's like concrete jungle, it's a grind, but I'm a walker. I walk this city all the time. I think I was looking at my health app the other day. I walk about 5 miles a day in New York.
Nice.
And you can walk through different neighborhoods. Like, I just love it. I love as much as I'm sometimes think I'm an introvert, I fucking love people. And I love just the conversations I pick up. I love getting on the subway. I love theater. There's always something to do. The beauty of it is, because I get to travel a lot, is I get to go away from it, and then I get to come back to it. So I think that's
I guess that's the balance right there, is, if you want, you can go see those other things and then come back.
Yeah, but I didn't. When I was a kid, I never imagined I would live in New York City for as long as I have. But now I can't imagine not living in New York City.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Toronto was the second office we opened. I love going up to Toronto. That's also a city from when we opened to now is just completely built. I mean, at one point it was just all you could see was cranes, because people were moving there. It's a great place to live. Then London happened, and I have a sister in London who lives there, will live there the rest of her life. I love London. I love England. I love the countryside. I mean, if I was to live any other place, it probably would be there. We did have an office in Amsterdam, and we kind of moved that to Berlin, but I also love Amsterdam. I mean, I can't get enough of Amsterdam. But yeah, Shanghai I don't get to that much for, it's a bit of a journey, but great office there. Berlin's our newest. And then LA was our, let's see, Toronto, London, Shanghai, LA, and then Berlin. Yeah. So, and LA was like, there's so much talent in LA. Just getting to why did you open in certain places? Sometimes it was a business opportunity, and sometimes it was a talent opportunity. And LA was a talent opportunity. All these people that we kept meeting, we were like, you're amazing. We're like, I don't want to leave California. I don't want to leave LA. So then you're like, all right, well, maybe we have to set up shop there. And that's because that's where the talent is. And there's tons of opportunity there in terms of business and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that like to grow and be like, okay, we got to find people who we can trust to helm these offices?
It's a great question. It's one that, I think at the end of the day, it's the leadership is, you got to start there. Who's going to lead that office? And then like I said earlier, you hire people who are really good and you let them do their thing. A long time ago, way back in the day, I was micromanaged by someone, and I couldn't stand it. And I finally went to my boss and I said, "Look, did you hire me to bring my voice, or am I supposed to interpret your voice?" And it was a really good. It was like, and he was sort of like, "Oh, wow, you're kind of calling me out." And I was like, "Yeah, because like if I can just go somewhere else." And I've never forgotten how horrible it felt to be micromanaged. The way we structure the offices, we have basically a leadership team of 3 people. Now it's important that those 3 people love each other. They're in sync, shared values, same ambitions, and you're pretty much good from there. I mean, to put it simply, if you don't get those 3 people right, then problems happen.
That's cool.
Because it's like anything. It's like you all need to be able to sit down And I just said y'all like I'm from Texas.
Maybe that's where the next office is.
It's so much easier to say y'all.
It's easy.
It's so much easier to say y'all than you all. So that group, that triumvirate needs to be really tight because of the people everyone else will feel if that leadership, it's like parents, right? If the parents aren't in sync with how they're going to raise the kids feel that.
Yeah.
And we've learned that the hard way sometimes. I mean, it's not all, it hasn't all been smooth. We've gotten it wrong and then we have to fix it. But like, that's really the special sauce. If you get those three people right, that's the foundation.
Yeah.
In terms of us, it's just like, do you have the same ambition that we do? And we're very much a meritocracy in that, like, I still create, like I still write, like I could never turn that tap off.
I was curious about how involved you still are. And I don't want to segue too soon, but I was curious about that to know if on the note of all these offices and all these locations, when I saw your earlier work, I was just curious because, I mean, when you move up, again, this is me just gauging from the outside looking in, and you're moving up that much, you have to start managing so many people, I assume. I was wondering how involved do you still get to be creatively? When do you get to step in and go, actually, I'm taking this one, everyone, or I'm pitching this one?
It's like, literally sometimes I'll just pick up something that there's no resources for, and it could be like the dirtiest thing, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like, to give you a good analogy. So in high school and college, I was a coxswain in rowing. So I was the little guy.
Yeah.
So for 4 years in high school, I wrestled 98 pounds for 4 years.
Okay.
So I was a tiny little turd. And then I grew 6 inches in college, and then I had to suck weight to continue to be a coxswain. When you're a coxswain, all these guys are rowing, they're doing all the workouts. And I'm like, I got to do the same workouts that they do to get their respect. So that philosophy is carried over into this career, that I feel like if I'm not throwing my hat in the ring, and that's why I'll take jobs that no one else wants, or I'll have a certain relationship with a client where I'll work with them and a group of people. But I feel like if I'm going to give creative feedback, I got to also have a little skin in the game. And not everyone, I know there are a lot of people in my position that don't do any of that, and that's fine too. But I have to do it. I couldn't not do it. If I was just a manager, I couldn't do it. So, and then that gets back to, like, hire people for some of the best managing is just letting them do their thing and then being there for them when they need you, when they reach out to you, or they want a second opinion. Like, hey, what do you think of this? Would you do anything differently? I'll always give an opinion. But my management style is like way more hands off, but be there for whatever inspiration. Hey, did you think about this? Or go check out this show in LA that's happening in West Hollywood. Like, stuff like that. Like, just keep feeding, like I always talk about, creative people have a well, our job is between our ears. So, like, you got to draw on things. I am the product of the last book I read and the last movie I saw. I need to keep filling the well. My favorite value in people is curiosity. Because if you're curious, you're not judgmental. You're not a dick. You want to put yourself in uncomfortable situations because you're going to learn something there. And those are the people that I try to surround myself with. And then, back to, like, still being a practitioner, like, I just like learning. And, like, I'll go on I'll still go on productions, and I'll still, like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. Like, there's never an end to what you can learn, and that's where ego is such a weird thing. Like, if you think you know it all, you're just stupid, and you're showing everyone how stupid you are. It's like, I still ask the dumbest questions that most people would be embarrassed to ask, but I don't care. I can only control what I think, and I can only control what's in front of me. And I can't worry about what other people think of me.
Yeah.
That's just a waste of time. But, like, that bit is so vital. So if people don't see me as being as a curious person, as in a leadership position, how am I expect them to be curious? Or and hopefully through osmosis, my curiosity and my energy and my ambition, rubs off on other people. And sometimes it doesn't. And, you got to deal with that.
I think it would. Not that I need to validate you at all, but like I told you from the beginning, this is stuff that, again, very hungry, because I've seen a lot of similar personalities, the people who actually take the time to reach out. There's a lot of tenacity there too. And so this stuff it's very validating to hear. So I appreciate you kind of, like I said, letting us take a peek under the hood to see these methods that aren't just working, but ones you've kept from the beginning, and you almost because you stuck with them. I don't know if they work because you stuck with them, or just because you believe in them, or it's just more authentic. I don't know if this is the direct explanation, but I could tell from the way you were talking about it just now. You said product of the last book you read. I was looking at your work over the last 20 years. I was kind of smiling because I could sense the things. I've got a guy doing parkour running from a chicken for Nike. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember parkour was huge. The Office was joking about parkour. Parkour was everywhere for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The tag one felt almost downtown Matrixy a little bit to me. It kind of had this air of the early 2000s a little bit, even though it's got nothing to do with the Matrix. I just kind of 100%. Felt it.
No, you nailed it though.
Oh yeah? Okay. And then some of the sports ones, they just felt, they felt, without seeming like they were posery, because there is a lot of stuff you see it sometimes. You're like, I get it. I'm living in the same world you are. I know, but it's like a fun nod to it rather than just copying trends. Like I get scared of that for us too, because I'll think, well, man, I really like these film grainy shots. I'm pretty sure everyone's slapping film grain onto everything right now. So now I have to figure out how to push this in another authentic direction that I'm excited about, but that's not like got this wave of creatives behind it that are about to copy it because they just saw it and saw it work.
You just touched on something that I talk about a lot with people. I call it pattern behavior. And I like, nothing gets me more like angry, and I try to contain it when someone shows me a commercial as a reference. I don't know why that bothers me. It just bothers me. But like pattern behavior happens in our industry where, and I'll go back to like the viral video days. And then you would, and it happens to our clients, and the clients go, we want a viral video like this thing. And you're like, you're just patterning your behavior off another brand. It's like, you should actually do the opposite. You should do something different. And this, in our industry, it mirrors back a lot.
Yeah.
Like you'll see themes that happen, and you'll see it on the Super Bowl. It's a great place to see pattern behavior. You'll see people kind of doing the same sort of tropey stuff or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because we get into that cycle, and we're, so much of our industry is just talking to ourselves. And I really try to get people to like get out of that framework. And again, getting back to why I love living in New York is like, you can go and immerse yourself in something completely different and get yourself out of that. Cause you gotta like, biohack yourself. You gotta like, it happens to me all the time where I'm like, I got one thing in my head on a, like I'm on this treadmill and I can't disrupt it. And I have to like find a way to get out of it and get a fresh perspective. But our industry, just back to that pattern behavior bit, it's like we just kind of we see things, and it's like the fad of the moment. I remember when, and Crispin in their heyday was amazing when they did that Whopper freakout, and it was a hidden camera. Well, then what happened after that? You saw all these hidden camera ideas, and because people see it. It worked. They like it. And then boom, they do it again and they do it again. And people are like, well, we should do the hidden camera thing. And that happens all the time. And I'm sure it happens in Hollywood as well.
Oh yeah.
People making the stuff are affected by what they're seeing, and they're like something about it that they like. And it's just natural sort of human psychology, I guess. But you have to really try to, the agency people have to fight it, and the clients, the marketers have to fight it too, because they see it and their boss says, hey, we should do something like that. And then that's your brief. And that's not the way to do it.
Obviously, you and Anomaly, you're gearing up to do a Super Bowl commercial. I'm pretty sure that there's a short list of very busy directors, right? So we have to kind of reach even further down. Let's say you're working on one of those smaller projects or one of your more junior teams or something. What can our directors and production companies do to you? And there's no wrong answer, of course, to stand out. To look cutting edge. And it's a tough question for a reason, but it's like, how do I stand out to them without looking like I'm just copying what everyone else is doing? And obviously not the way, but your way to you, because this is for you specifically, because I know there's maybe a textbook answer, but I mean, for you and Anomaly specifically.
Well, you start with, obviously you for younger people, is you have an idea that you love. And then I think another thing that happens in our industry a lot is you start to see this list of directors. It's the same list.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to, I wasn't even at Wyden, but I remember hearing this story about a director named Spike Jonze, who, early days, he had done a student film. I think it was called How Did It Get There? And it's a great little short film about, you ever see like a shoe on the side of the road? Like just randomly, you'll see a shoe on the side of the road. Well, the film starts with that shoe. And you look at that, you're like, A, this person understands what an idea is. That's amazing. And B, the story that they told and how they executed it was phenomenal. And someone in production, it might have been a guy named Bill Davenport, saw that, or a creative, saw that film and used a young Spike Jonze. And that was game changing. And then they brought it to life, and you're like, this person is a filmmaker.
Yeah. But it's neat because you didn't say anything about they shot it on this camera, or it's looks this expensive. It's very much, you said, story.
Yes. And just the way he put the story together. There's two main characters in it. There's a huge car crash. It's great. Like it still holds up too. It's like amazing. But like trying to get out of this is where the production department and really good producers is like finding those people, finding those new voices that know how to tell stories and have that talent. And so, because if you're young and then you get in with a young director and you have a big idea, then there's a relationship that starts there, and then you get credibility, as opposed to just using sort of like the same sort of recycled directors that kind of come across all the time. I mean, by the way, not to downplay those recycled directors, because they're recycled for a reason. They're consistently great.
Well, yeah. And I mean, when there's that much money on the line, you need somebody who's not going to implode, right?
Yeah. You want the director and you want the production company. There's nothing worse than having a great director and a crappy production company. Like again, talking about those two forces have to be.
Have you seen that play out before?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't remember what job it was, but I was talking to a director and I was just like on the side, I'm like, dude, you gotta find a new production company. You're line producer, like everyone that's supposed to supporting you is not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's compromising what we're trying to do. And this is a mess, because production is so vital. I haven't even talked about that, but I'll call all the behind the scenes people that make everything come together that's so important.
Yeah.
And you pretty early on whether the line producer, the EP, all the people on that side of the fence, if they're dialed in and tight and just on it, you're pumped.
Yeah.
When you sense that they're not, that creates unnecessary cortisol flow in the body and stress and anxiety. And we're all in service to the idea. Everyone is in service to the idea. And nothing gets me more irritated when they're like, oh, well, like excuses and compromise. It's like, no, man, we're in service to this idea. We're beholden to that. I am, and all of you are. And when you don't feel that, that's when things go sideways. And
yeah. You'd mentioned you hadn't even gotten into production companies yet. Is there more you could kind of elaborate on with production companies in general? It can be good or bad, because again, these are all good things for us to pick up, because maybe somebody is that production company and they have the opportunity to turn it around. Maybe it's a director with a production company and they go, you know what, it's probably time for me to leave. Or maybe it's a great production company that doesn't have good directors on board. So anybody can benefit from hearing this stuff from you. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, like any business that, production companies got to make money. And I know a lot of them, they have their A-list directors and they got like the maybe up and comers. I don't know enough about how all that works. The only thing that I know is that the kind of people they put on your job, are they giving your job their A team, or are they giving your job their B team? And I'm not talking about the director. I'm talking about everybody that circles around that director.
Yeah.
What people like me want to feel is, we want to feel that they're doing everything they can to bring the idea to life. And, you get into things where they got to make their money. You may have a location that you love. And then sometimes I'll hear like, oh, we can't afford that location. I'm like, well, who can't afford it? Are you not making your margins on it? Is it too much of a company move? Can we figure something else out? Because that location is the best location. So you get into like little things like that. But again, I don't know sometimes, because sometimes they're like, no, the company move's got to be less than 2 miles in order to get this day done. So It's really just a feeling, because I've been sold a bag of goods so many times. Like, I'll have an EP call me up and tell me about this director who I don't know, and and swear that this is and it was just smoke and mirror. It was sales.
Yeah.
But I get that part, and that's where you have to. Am I being sold here, or are they generally like really believe in this person, or they? Their directors got to get jobs. They got to do whatever, 10 jobs a year. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's a business. So, it's just like, and I get it. And I'm run a business. I get it. You got to have money coming in. You got to pay people. You got to fix the copier. You got all that stuff you got to worry about. So sometimes the idea can get lost. So it's more of a feeling than anything.
We try not to operate like that because we just operate under the basis of that being short-sighted, right? Because if I pitched you on a director and I burn the experience, why would you answer my call ever again?
Exactly.
So I assume, so I would assume it goes that way all the way up, even if you do get that sort of business.
Even if you're, and again, it goes back to that word honesty. Even if you were like, they've never done anything like this. This is going to be new. Because like sometimes I like that. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. All right. This is going to be fun. Like, and am I risk averse? Not at all. And you can obviously see enough in the work that someone's done to know, they're in the spectrum here. This is going to work. And I'm willing to roll the dice a lot of times.
Yeah. On that note, something that comes up often is, how do I get the job if I don't have any experience? How do I get experience if I don't have experience? But I've also, just plainly put, I've heard, a few cool people I've met over the last few months through this process. He said, look, there's just too much money on the line. If we're shooting a commercial for millions and millions of dollars, I need to know that you've done this before. I can't afford to take that risk. So I need to see that you have done this on a smaller level to get hired for this specifically. Not, we can never talk to you. But I guess I was curious. You seem a little more maybe dialed in and willing to experiment. Do you have that same ideology once you reach a certain point? You're like, hey guys, it's the Super Bowl, got to go with the sure thing? Or are there other cases where you're like, look, I know this director's never done a sci-fi alien spot, but we're doing a sci-fi alien Bud Light commercial, and I just got a good feeling based on these other things. So what does that look like for you to take, I guess I'll call it a risk in that sense, on somebody? What does that person bring to the table or team where maybe they don't have the resume to meet you, where you can just slide the resume in front of other people, but where they're bringing something to the table that has you go to bat for them?
Great question. I mean, I always think like the best decision is an informed decision. If you have that director who's never shot like a sci-fi alien thing, the first part of me goes, that's really interesting, because this is going to be their first time doing it. That's exciting. It must be exciting for them. And then it just, it gets into like, what is their vision for it? What are their references for it? What are they pulling from? What are they? And if I feel like they understand the language that we're trying to establish, I'm willing to take that risk. I mean, like when you get into the Super Bowl stuff, yeah, I've pretty much across the board have used sort of like what you'd call the A-listers, only because, they've been big narrative, big production, and that's a lot to ask like a new filmmaker, a young filmmaker. Young has nothing to do with it, but like I'm not against it. It's and I look for it. Like one of my big things, like I constantly want to be seeing, and I ask of that of productions, like who's out there. Like go to the film festivals, find like someone that may have done like a 3-minute short film that brought the house down. Like and then I just have people in the community, like people that I rely on that are outside of advertising in the production world, reps and stuff like that, who I have a relationship with. I'm like, hey, who are you seeing that's doing interesting stuff? Because I need somebody on this who can bring a little chaos.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for people. I'm always looking for that undiscovered talent. I wish I had more time to like really invest in that, because it pains me to think that there's this amazing talent out there that I haven't worked with yet. And like, what a missed opportunity for me, selfishly.
Yeah. It's cool to imagine, though, you at a coffee shop with, one of your coworkers asking about that. Well, I'll pop into the next one here. I'm going to share a quote from you from 2017. You said, if you go where the money goes, you'll be fine. If you choose to ignore it, you'll be Kodak. And the question was, digital ad spending will surpass TV spending this year, according to eMarketer. Is that a problem for agencies or an opportunity? Now, it's from the agency interview, 27 questions with Mike. My reason by bringing it up was eventually just for, you kind of mold it into, what are you seeing right now I know I'm confident that it's not going to change your approach to things, because it doesn't matter the technology, right? You're still going to have the same approach, whether it's portrait mode video for Instagram or, a Super Bowl commercial. Is there anything that you or your team or friends are looking to on the horizon right now where you're like, the wind is blowing in this direction and we don't want to be Kodak in this sense? I know that's vague again, but we can just see where it takes us.
I mean, it's like I think everyone says the same thing. It's like everybody likes a good story. Mm-hmm. You just got to find new places to put it and new ways to express it.
Yeah.
We're living in a world where it's tell me a good story in 6 seconds. That's a great brief. That's fun. What are most jokes? Most jokes are like 15 seconds. So,
yeah.
And then there's speed of craft. Like now you just got to get stuff out faster and quicker. I mean, I think the whole social world is fascinating because there's actually less rules. You have more freedom in social, and you can do way more things, and and connect with people in way more intimate ways than you can on, say, like television.
Yeah.
And that's only getting. I mean, in some ways, it's getting creepier. Algorithms and all that stuff, and how do you plan for the algorithm? And then, gaming is so fascinating to stay involved in gaming. Yeah. And, when a game releases, I mean, they're bigger than films. Like Fortnite is a freaking empire.
Right? The model of getting a relevant skin in promotion in direct tandem with something that's coming out, or if you want a resurgence.
So smart.
It's crazy.
They just stay so current, so smart, and it's such a great moneymaker for them.
Yeah.
Because the new skin drops and you buy it. I mean, it's just a revenue stream. It's a flowing river that never stops.
They used to sucker me even, because they don't just limit it to 14-year-olds. If I would see, if I saw I remember seeing a Halo and a Predator skin. I was like, I should probably hop on Fortnite and buy that skin. And I would just get wasted by kids. And then I'd be off and I'd be like, well, at least I look cool because I'm the Predator. I have to zip my lips on gaming because I go too far into it all the time, because it has escalated a lot. I mean, on a storytelling front, I don't want to go off, but you'll see I've got a God of War poster on the wall back there. I don't know if you've
Well, here's my problem. I almost want to take a year off, which will never happen, and just game and just be a gamer and just go deep. And,
that one was smart because they released it in November. So it was the winter months, so it's dark early. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? It's 16 degrees outside. I have to do this for 2 hours, and it's 48 hours to get through it, which I don't know, maybe I feel gross for saying, but it doesn't feel like 48 hours when you're doing an hour a night for a couple of months. But man, it's awesome.
Both my parents are in their 80s, and I was telling my dad the other night, I was like, you should get into gaming.
Yeah.
Like you would go, I would get all the gear, get in.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh my God. Because to your point, the production level and the worlds that you can go into,
it's amazing.
The things you can do in those worlds. You can be your own. I mean, there's guys people in Fortnite, real hardcore architects building stuff. You could spend a year just picking up garbage. There's so many places to go and things to do. It's unbelievable.
It is a cool medium. And if you ever get into it in other ways, that would be pretty cool. It does seem like one of the few things that's easy to point to go back to a technology point and be like, I think that might be the future, because I haven't been affected. I have a friend, he's a writer on, there's a Netflix show that's inspired by a game. It's called Arcane. Their season 2 is coming out.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
You'd think I'm getting paid to promote for them, but I'm just a fan. And we called each other after finishing Ragnarok. I mean, he's 10 years older than me, got kids. We're not totally the same, but we're just talked for a couple of hours about the greatness of this thing. And I still say it's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm just almost in tears at the end. It was such an emotional experience. It was so good. And then my gamer friends, they'd be like, yeah, well, that's not the only one. There's a few others. I'm just like, wow, I'm out here seeking these narrative highs from, there's a lot of content being cranked out, and it's commercials and TV too. But I mean, it's like you said, there's so much work that goes into it. I don't know. I got to be careful not to get too off here.
No,
It's amazing.
You're like, speaking of storytelling, you're living the story.
That's kind of the thing. It really is like the 4D of getting into it. It's like, no, you made me save my son from an ice cliff or something. I'm not just, I'm not just cutting vegetables in the kitchen while hearing it on the TV in the background, and that's tough.
No, it is. It's like, it's a whole world there.
It's a hard thing to navigate too, especially with that. And I don't know if it's something you guys feel like have you heard the phrase second screen?
Yes.
You have. Okay. Yeah. So that has entered into your workspace. I don't know that you guys have the same concern though. Do you, about things being second screen enough? Like, never mind. I guess you would, of course, right? Because people are more prone to look away during commercials. So you have to catch their attention even harder.
I feel like most people, when they're watching, I mean, depending on what age you are, like, I think most kids don't even watch TV. They just watch, that's the beauty of YouTube. You can like type in LA gang documentary. Boom. You got they're just, that's where they're getting all their content from there and other places, obviously. But everyone's too screening. I'll be watching TV. I'll be watching Sports Center, looking for a good pickup of my fantasy football.
You play fantasy, huh?
Oh yeah, I love it.
How does someone like you have time to play fantasy?
It fills those little there's little gaps.
Yeah,
like it's that tab that's open. Like I first thing I do every morning is I read sports without a doubt, and then it's just part of my DNA. And then I will constantly check in. Before this call, I looked at I have Deebo Samuel and he's injured. I'm like, I need another receiver.
Yeah, you do.
There's no one available. Do I make a trade? What do I do? All that
Shakir.
Stuff. I'm managing a football team. It's
I'm busy.
I got responsibilities.
Yeah. What app are you using on your league?
I've been a Yahoo guy. Just because I'm in the same league. I've been in the same league for 12 years. It's always been on Yahoo.
That's awesome. I love hearing those stories. Well, I was going to say there's a new one called Sleeper, if you've heard of it.
No.
So I had to remove myself from leagues because I'm trying in the middle of wrapping up an indie feature outside of work, which is cool. Just like my wife's kind of starting to look at me and be like, "Hey, hon, when are we going to get back to the money making?" And, so I'm trying to, so I had to take myself away from fantasy for a little while, but I did a sleeper league before I left. And the way that they move data, it's really nice if you kind of just want to cheat because they show trends in more details than the other apps did from what I recalled. So I'm busy and I would take a look, this is like 2 years ago. So I would take a look at stuff and it would say 27,000 people are putting in waivers to pick up this person. So whereas instead like ESPN and Yahoo, you see it after the fact, who got picked up the most last week, they're showing the submissions for those and they're showing who's trending. Mm-hmm. And there's like a mix of social media. It's very smart UI. And I didn't care. I was like, what is Sleeper? This seems like another weird up and coming app. And then I looked at the UI and just that one feature, I was like, that's what I need. I need to mooch off of the other guys who are taking the time to do the research
100%
so that I can win.
100%. I go find it, but I'm like, there's people they're getting paid to be fantasy people. I'm going to go see what they're doing.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. So let me just see what they're doing. All right. I got to go back to filmmakers and advertising.
Yep. Yes.
As we wind it down here, there's so many things I wanted to bring up, but I'm just because I had a good practice because I don't want to let subjects I raised go away. You worked on the Lance Armstrong Live Strong band campaign, right?
Yes.
What was that like seeing thousands of people walking around with yellow wristbands on? I was one of them. Did that feel like success?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was, you now they call it purpose-driven marketing. The guy that came up with the idea for Yellow Band actually worked at Anomaly. So that's an interesting story. A guy named Richard Mulder was my client at Nike, had the idea. They made it. He's Dutch. So when we started Anomaly, I left Wyden, came to New York, and a year later, and I've been, he and I are tight, and he's like a creative, he's like very creative, very strategic. And I was like, do you want any, and his parents were getting older. He moved back to Amsterdam. And I'm like, do you want to come work at Anomaly? That's a side story. But he came up with it. So I was working with him directly on it, and it was, you go into a 7-Eleven, you could buy the yellow bands, and everything we did around it was great. I mean, that was like one of the things you're like, oh my God. And then being with Lance, there's so many Nike spots that I can't remember that I did that I can't even keep track of, because that was before like digital. They're all in VHS tape somewhere. But we did the spot where it's a press conference, and he's talking about cancer spread to his liver, his lungs, and his brain. And like, you get cancer in your liver, lungs, and brain, you're gonzo. And he went through it. So like, he was a big inspiration, very intense guy, really liked him. I got to spend some time with him. But yeah, that was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah. Well, I have two more questions that I want to hit before I lose you. One, it's kind of vague, but if there's anything industry relevant, what's something that you're excited about right now? It can be anything.
What am I excited about? I try to think about the industry that I sit in. I try to think about where is everybody focused, not to go where they're focused. Because like when I talked about earlier, like our industry talks to itself, repeats itself, tries to pat itself on the back. And I always try to think of like being a more like, Anomaly. So we were always set up to we have 1 foot in the industry and 1 foot out the industry.
I love that. Yeah.
And then it's also having a bit of a disdain for the industry. It's more like the ethos and philosophy of Anomaly that I try to keep intact. And, we call it Anomaly because by definition it's deviation from the norm, but we all wanted to do other things outside of our industry, that entrepreneurial spirit. Why don't we, and we've heard this from agencies before, and Mother's been really good at it. What are other things we can invest our time and energy into that are outside of this, but use the same skill sets that we have?
Yeah.
So that's always the thing. It's like making sure that we're Anomaly, because it can rebirth at any moment based on our philosophy.
That's cool. I genuinely really like hearing that. 'Cause sometimes I would say things like, everyone in Hollywood's so caught up trying to be punk. You all just end up as a bunch of punks, like in a bit of a circle jerk.
Yeah.
I guess to say nothing else. That's what it turns into.
Yeah.
And it's like you could almost be punk by not being punk. Because it does. It ends up just being a room of seagulls. And you can kind of step back and go, guys, we're all saying the same things here. This is not gritty or edgy if we're all saying the same things.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that's really cool that you, so that I would assume that has a trickle down effect at the office or offices too. So that must be neat to have a lot of people around.
I hope so.
All right. Here, this one's going to seem kind of bizarre and maybe tough. You're able to take your brain right now from our sci-fi machine and remove that brain and just poof, you're 22 years old, fresh out of Georgetown again, but it's 2024 with 2025 around the corner, and you still have to want to end up where you are now. What do you think you would do?
But I have to be in advertising. Did you say?
Well, let's say you want to end up back where you are now, because I don't want to limit you by saying advertising.
It's sort of, I don't know if it's changed from my original philosophy. First of all, when I graduated Georgetown, I didn't even know advertising was a business. I didn't know you could be a copper. I didn't know any of that stuff. I had no idea. I didn't discover it until many years later. So I would definitely now know, there's this industry where you can be a creative person and you can be fulfilled creatively. You can find fulfillment. It's hard to find fulfillment as a creative person in a lot of different industries. And I mean, in this one, it comes and goes, right? Like you have moments where you don't get any fulfillment. Like during COVID, it was all like survival. And I was like, why do I feel so horrible outside of like what's going on in the world? I was like, I wasn't fulfilled. I was on Zoom calls all day, and let's get in a room and talk things out and whiteboard and go for a walk and all that stuff. But I would just go, who are the most talented people in this industry, and how do I go work for them? And how do I go learn from them? That would still be what I would tell myself. Find the most talented people and don't worry about money. Money will come, but go, and because your first couple of years in any industry is like grad school. You're learning and you want to learn from the best. You want to see how their brain works, how they approach problems, how they navigate this business. And I would just, do everything I could to get next to them and be with them and be around them. And then, how do I get that job would be the other thing. Because, then you're like, oh, well, I actually have to get the job. They may be super talented, but they may think I'm an idiot. So how do I navigate that process? But I'd still do that. Like go where the talent is. I'm sure if you played with Michael Jordan, you became a better basketball player. Same with Tom Brady, like go where the best are, see how they operate, see how they do things, and steal as much as you can from them. I'm a thief and a hoarder. Like, I will steal any idea. Someone says something smart in a meeting, I'm writing it down, and then I'll hoard it, and then I'll get back to the well, and then I'll pull it out later as if it was mine. And that's what you do when you go see a movie or read a book. You see something, you take it, you pop it down there, and you pull it back out when you need it. That would still be my MO.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I really can't think of anything better to wrap us out on than a statement like that. On behalf of the listeners, I would love to say thanks, man. Really, really appreciate you sharing a lot of your stuff with us today.
Absolutely.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Mike Byrne of Anomaly. You can see the show notes and links at filmmakersinadvertising.com or filmcry.com/podcast. From Cry, a creative production and post house based in New York City, I'm Cody, and this is Filmmakers in Advertising. What's your favorite Budweiser commercial?